All right, welcome back. We are now on the main event of Mountain Minds Monday, and I want to start out by thanking all of our sponsors who make this event possible. So our gold sponsor is Holland & Hart. They practice a lot of different types of law, actually, but really specialize in intellectual property, which might be of interest here. Our silver sponsors are New Leaders. They've sponsored us, I think, for about 7 years, and they're a Truckee-based web and mobile app development company. Our next silver sponsor is Mobile Law. They have offices in Truckee, Reno, Sacramento, and Incline, and they represent clients in business law, construction law, estate planning, family law, intellectual property, real estate law, and bankruptcy. Our next silver sponsor is the Lyft Co-working, and they're a co-working space here in Truckee. They're located out by the airport, and something new there, they now have a podcast recording studio. So definitely check it out there, as well as another co-working space, Mountain Workspace, and they are newly opened just in March over in Incline Village, so go check them out as well. Oh, I didn't mention our community partners at the bottom, and you guys can all wave at Dan and Rory, who are here in the room from Truckee Tahoe Community Television, and everyone else is listed there. And if you are interested to become a sponsor, and sponsorship, of course, is integral to how this group runs, you can get more information at the link. You've got a few options, the link, you've got the email, or just come talk to me. And Josh isn't here tonight, but he's our sponsorship coordinator, so you'll be put in touch with him. And then we also have the opportunity to become an individual sponsor. So what this is you pay $150, and that is for the year, and that gets you entrance to all of our events, your pizza, your salad, and drink. You're essentially prepaying. And so thank you to all the individual sponsors who are here tonight, and you can learn more at that link there. And so now I want to introduce our speaker for tonight while we're all here. And I'm going to read out her bio here. So this is Laura Louthan, and Laura is a cybersecurity and information technology expert and founder of Angel Cybersecurity. She graduated with a degree in biochemistry from Oxford University. She discovered her passions align less with microscopes and petri dishes and more with technology. So she spent 15 years as a hands-on IT professional, finally moving into information security for the last 6 years. With her new entrepreneurial venture, Laura has taken on her next incarnation as a cybersecurity angel. She provides cybersecurity risk management, strategic support, and compliance for SMBs. She focuses on bringing better security to those organizations, and to those individuals too, who have not known what and who to ask to secure the electronic assets they care about. Laura has owned a house in Tahoe Donner since the summer of 2016 and loves escaping up to the area from Marin, where she's based. So a huge thank you, and here's Laura.
Hello, everybody. So hopefully everyone's got beer and pizza, because we're going to talk about security and privacy, and it helps to have a little something delicious when you're doing that. So when I was talking to the Tahoe Silicon Mountain people about doing this session, they said you can't be too scary, because apparently they had someone in the past who basically terrified everybody, and everybody left and said, you know, we're doomed. So we are doomed, but we can be less doomed. We're not doomed. There are a lot of things that we can do to make things better. So what we're going to talk about today is cybersecurity and privacy. There is a difference. Sometimes it's hard to see. what you need to know about what you can do to help improve things for both yourself as an individual and your company, for those of you that have companies, and just generally how to be running faster than the guy behind you being chased by a bear. So this is me. See, I'm not here to scare you. It says so on the slide, so it must be true. I started my own company about a year ago as a consultant, and it has been really amazing. I've really loved it. So I think there's a bunch of people here that have done the same thing and generally started up their own stuff, and it is amazing. So we're going to talk about security, cybersecurity. What is it? So who's watched, by the way, if you have questions as we go along, just yell at me, yell Laura, something, wave your hand, and I love answering questions. Who's watched Mr. Robot? Okay, so weirdly, I haven't, but only because I think I do it all day. But that's security, right? It's good, all right. So hacking, right? So people are very familiar with hacking. Hacking is a thing, right? It's a thing, and it's a thing that we see in the news. But in reality, it's really just the most well-known part of cybersecurity, really. There's a lot of things with cybersecurity as we go along the way. So for me, it's the measures taken, right? So my job is to make sure that companies take measures to achieve protection against criminal or unauthorized use. That's the different bit from privacy, which we're going to talk about later. So cybersecurity, information security, as opposed to physical security, for those of you that deal with physical security, so doors, locks, that kind of stuff. It comes into my world a little bit as well, but very little. And I'm not very good at it. So there's a lock with a key. That's about as much as I get into physical security. So for all of you, whether you have a business or you as an individual, there are things that you need to do to make things better. So there are 3 tenets of cybersecurity. It's the CIA, which is weird, and we're just trying to adopt this to make us sound cooler as security professionals. So it's confidentiality. So confidentiality is pretty obvious. So for those of you that take customer data as well, are you keeping your customers' data confidential? For those of you, I know there are a couple of people that are getting health data. I'm working with health data, I think. So you have to meet HIPAA rules, which are typically around confidentiality and privacy. So confidentiality is it actually confidential, right? This is one of the words everyone's very familiar with. Probably don't need a great deal of explanation. And then integrity. Integrity is an interesting word as it comes to cybersecurity, because has it been changed? So one of my clients I have right now is a healthcare company, and they take in, one of the things they take in is feeds from IoT devices, so health monitors, right? So let's just say it's a health monitor. And they bring in this data, and what happens if this data goes into someone else's chart, right? So that's an integrity issue. You don't have the data you're expecting to get, and that can cause bad things to happen. And then availability. So has anyone deleted a bunch of files by mistake? You don't have to, you can just do a little like secret wave. I think we've all done that. That is availability, right? If your files are not where you need them to be when you need them to be there, that is an availability issue. So there are many different reasons that could happen, right? So if someone deleted them by mistake, on purpose, as ransomware, actually it doesn't really matter, because they're all things that would be addressed by cybersecurity. So when you think about your data that needs protecting, so I'm not going to talk about physical security, doors, locks, somebody else can deal with that. But when you think about your data that needs protecting, so your personal data, so you as an individual, you have bank account information, you have medical information, you have financial data related to just about everything. You have your social security number, which Kathy and I were talking about earlier. You have your date of birth, which actually is a field that's surprisingly useful for bad people. And then for those of you that have companies that collect data from your customers, that don't have to be individuals, they could be other companies, that data may also be considered sensitive by them. So these are all things that you have to look after. You're kind of obligated to look after your customers' data if you're a company, and you really should be looking after your own data as an individual. So when you think about it, how much data do you have out there? So we'll talk about Facebook in a minute. But if you think of all the stuff you have out there, I have basically given up. My data is probably everywhere, and there's just a limited amount. I can't get it back. That's the thing, is you really can't get it back once it's gone. And is there anything out there that you don't want to share? Now, this could be, in some cases, like my sister-in-law, pictures of her kids, right? She doesn't want to share pictures of her kids. So who then is sharing them on her behalf, or where has she put them? Maybe it's your health information. Did you have a question? Or are you waving to say you agree with me? Thank you. How much stuff do you have out there? So this is one of the things you should think about as you start thinking about how to protect stuff. Same goes for your customers if you're a company. One of the biggest problems that companies have is actually not knowing what data they have or where it is, especially with cloud. So there's things here and there's things there and everywhere, and you had a contractor in and they took the entire thing home on a USB key. Things you need to worry about. So in the news, so anyone got a data breach? A recent ugly data breach? No, so what, okay, well, which one? Yeah, USA. The government's been really brilliant at, so data breaches are, so Equifax. I worked at Equifax, right, long time ago. I'm not taking blame for Equifax. However, just like any company, they didn't do a good enough job. So, yeah, boo, I know. So a data breach is when the data that you protect is something. It could be destroyed or it could be extricated. And it was not something that you wanted someone to do. It was not a permitted action. It was unauthorized, it was stolen, it was deleted. It doesn't really matter. Ransomware is another issue which is not typically called a data breach. It comes under availability. So I don't know if anyone here has been a victim of ransomware. It's not that common, but for individuals, but probably because most people don't tell people. Maersk, the shippers, I can't pronounce their name. So the big shipping company that you see on the side of every truck and every pallet on a train, they just had a ransomware issue. Where they had something like 35,000 desktops infected overall. They had to re-image 35,000 desktops. They were down for days and days and days and days, and the overall cost to them was something like $300 million. So this is not people's data being lost, right? So there's a big difference. This wasn't my credit card number or my social security number going out there. This was just a company that was completely brought to its knees and unable to function. So there's a definite cost associated with this. As an individual, if you have things that you care about, you need to make sure that you're protected against this stuff as well, which is entirely possible. So it's a little bit harder when you're a really big decentralized organization like them. They had a hard time coming back online. So things that you can do to protect yourself from these things, because there are a few. So. And really, nearly all of these apply for your personal stuff and your work stuff. So screen locks matter. So that's when you walk away from your phone, your laptop, your something, and after a certain period of time, it locks up. So to get back to it, you have to have your password. If you have a desktop that's at home that never leaves home, it isn't that necessary. I lock my workstation even when it's just me and my dog in the house and I'm going to make a cup of tea because it's my habit and I didn't think it was a habit I should break. But if you don't lock your laptop and you walk away from it, someone can take your laptop, at that point it's unlocked, and then they can make sure it doesn't lock, and then they really have access to all the information that's on your laptop, which in my case is sort of everything. So backups, if you have data. So let's say you're 50 years of graduation photos that you've had digitized and moved onto a drive, right? So maybe it's on Google Drive, maybe it's wherever, iCloud. Do you have a backup of it? So if you were attacked by a ransomware virus and you have a sync so that everything on your workstation syncs up to the cloud, right? So that's what I have. If I change a file in Google Drive here or here, it copies, so it's always the same. Would you be able to get that data back easily? Because even if you do have your data in the cloud, that kind of is a backup. If you lose that, that sort of is your backup unless you have another one. So I've got at the end, I've got a bunch of things I recommend. I use iDrive, there's Mozy, there's a ton of different things, and typically they're going to cost you in the $30 a year to have a copy of your stuff. Or you just buy a USB key from Amazon for virtually nothing, and just once in a while copy everything to that. If you're a business, you should have at least something like that. You can do really any of those things, but you should have something, because you need to ask yourself, if my data disappears, how long would I be without this stuff? Would I be able to function? Would I be able to get it back? Passwords. So think of them like underwear. This is a thing that, you know, don't share them and change them often, right? So this is an important thing. Now, the changing them often, interestingly enough, there's a government thing called NIST, which is the National Institute for, I can't even remember. Thank you. Right, so NIST has a whole bunch of things around cybersecurity, and they've actually just come out with some recent guidance saying, don't change them often. And if you're a company and you're making people change their passwords every 90 days, don't. Because all that people do is they use the same password or increment by 1 or whatever it is. And really what you should do is just have better passwords. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But don't share them. Don't share them unless there's a reason for sharing them, because anything you do under this username is logged under your username. And obviously, if you are giving someone access to your bank account, then they can do things to your bank account. So don't share them unless you know what you're doing with them. And don't change them often. But now I'm going to have to change my slide, and I like that bit. So, patching and antivirus. I've got some links at the end of this for free antivirus tools. They're out there. And if you have a Mac, yes, you should have antivirus. Macs are no longer completely immune. And patching. Who's using Windows laptops? I am. I'm not ashamed. I was actually laughed at by somebody. They said, you're a security person and you have a Windows laptop. I don't know how to use Mac. I just don't. I have an iPad, it's great, but the Macs I can't do. When they there's a setting in there where you can have them automatically update the patches. Of the last, I don't know how many breaches, at least like 50% of them were breaches, so company breaches. So let's, not Equifax is a different one, but let's talk about any really other ones. They were breaches that were assisted in their awfulness by the fact that there was a vulnerability out there that had been there for a number of years and nobody had patched them. Right? So if you have any Mac, Windows, whatever you have, get it to automatically patch the vendor recommended patches, because they come out every month or every so often with Macs. I don't know exactly, but with Windows it's every month. Patch your stuff, because these things are being used actively by bad people, because it just makes it very easy for them. They can come in and do whatever they like. And then email and internet security. So I've got a slide about what to look for in an email when someone's trying to get you to do something you shouldn't be doing. And likewise with internet security, yes. I'm actually going to talk about that. I missed that because I'm under the screen. I'm going to talk about it more in a minute, actually. So thank you for reminding me. Multi-factor. We're going to talk about that. So, see? I knew it was there somewhere. Okay. Okay, so multi-factor. So, who, when they log into their bank, gets a text message or something? Good, 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 good. So actually, that's pretty good. So, the reason we have multi-factor out there is because there's a couple of reasons. So firstly, we've already discussed, people are bad at passwords. So you're all using the same, not you, I'm going to collectively you, the generic you. You're all using the same password for your bank account as you are for your Facebook account or your local something account. And you don't really know how these databases of credentials are being protected. So if the random thing, your gym, whatever it is, if something you signed up for had their database of credentials compromised, and that password also works for your bank, and trust me, they're going to try, then at that point, you have given them access to your bank account or whatever it is that's more sensitive. So multi-factor, most of the sites that have data that you care about, so Facebook, Google, Twitter, banks, most of them will support this. So multi-factor is something you know, something you are, and something you have. So a password, your user ID doesn't count, it's not a factor, it's just the thing, right? So you are your user ID. And then your password is something you know, right? So you know your password, hopefully not too many other people know your password. That is single factor. So if you're just using a username and a password that's single factor, and if your username and password gets compromised, then they have access to whatever you're using that has that data. However, if you set yourself up with multi-factor, and typically you do that when you're setting up your account, but in most cases you could go and do that after the fact as well. If you're using Gmail, you go into your settings and go into security. It's reasonably, it's not always entirely straightforward, but most of them will look for multi-factor or second factor or two-factor. Then that means you set it up, so let's say you have your phone. So when you log into something, it then texts you and says, hey, is this you? Add in this code. So that means that if your password, your username and password was stolen, they'd also have to steal your phone, which is just a little bit harder to deal with. Something you are is a little tricky because so biometrics, right? So fingerprints are great. But India just had their entire database of biometrics stolen. The problem about biometrics is you can't change them. Your fingerprint's your fingerprint. You know, your retina scan's your retina scan. So I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's got a little bit of work to do before that's ready for everyone. But for those of you that can sign up for like Google Authenticator and use Google Authenticator as your second factor for really anything you can that you care about. If you care about it, see if you can secure it. Does that answer your question? All right. Passwords. I love this list. So this list is, it doesn't really change. This is the top 20. I'm not going to ask anybody, I really want to, if anyone has a password that they're using that is on this list. So this is the top 20 passwords used by people. And it doesn't really matter what year this was pulled because they really don't ever change. And the reason that people know what these passwords are is because your credentials are everywhere, right? Everything has been stolen from somebody or mistakenly given away or whatever it is. So if you have any of these, and a monkey, I don't understand that. If you have any of these, you should change them. I'm going to help you with that. But the most important thing about passwords is firstly, don't have a terrible one. Secondly, don't share passwords between stuff that you care about and stuff that you don't care about. Because the stuff that you don't care about, it's likely the security is not as good because it's probably not a regulated industry or a bank or whatever it is. No, I'm not going to ask if anyone has one. All right. So password managers. Does anyone use a password manager? Again, quite a lot of you. All right. I like LastPass. They're all the same. They're great. They're all effectively free. I think LastPass I pay $12 a year for, which is what, it's like 2.5 beers. So it is a good thing to have. And the reason you want to have a password manager is because it gives you the ability to have a different password for every single site you go to, and you don't need to remember any of them. You need to remember one. So when you log in, you have a master password, which is usually pretty good, and I recommend a phrase. Like Tahoe Silicon Mondays has pizza. That's a great phrase. You'll remember what it is. It's a very secure password because it's very long. And then every time you go somewhere, you use a password that it provides you. It takes a little bit of time to get it all set up because every time you log in, it says, do you want me to save this? And the answer is yes. And then you run a challenge, a security challenge that goes, all of your passwords are the same. So then your security score is not that great. But once you get there, it is really brilliant because you only need to remember one password. And that means that you can just have better passwords. You can also share them. So if there's passwords that, and it might be a secure note, right? So it might be the code to the safe that you want to share with someone who has access to the safe. You can save those things very securely in this kind of tool. Just back to the thing about sharing and underwear is just, be careful who you share things with. And good passwords, by good passwords, that means long and usually complex, so not dictionary words. Yes? Yes. Mnemonics are good. I have a friend who does his passwords in phonetic Romanian. So whatever it is, but there's a great, and I should have put it up here, there's a great slide where it has things like, it's fields of entropy, and I'm not a physicist or a mathematician, but basically if your password starts with a capital letter and ends with a hash or a number, That's like 90% of the passwords out there. So a password cracking tool is probably going to get to that a little bit quicker than a sentence with spaces, because actually, even though they may be dictionary words, there's just a lot more entropy in there, and that's as much as I can explain about entropy. It's not, I don't know, is it? Can you explain about entropy? Okay, all right. So the question was, are the auto-generated passwords in LastPass better or the same as creating them yourself? The answer is they're better, because the chances are you're not going to be able to create a very good one. It's actually remarkably hard to type 12 random letters and then panic about remembering them, right? So it's not maybe that the passwords are better, but you don't have to remember it, which automatically makes it better, right? And it's not going to look anything like your other passwords. And you can also create really long strings. It's funny that a lot of sites, when you put in a new password, they say, oh, your password's too long, which is really depressing, because passwords should be longer, because the longer they are, the harder it is for a computer to actually crack them. But so you can use LastPass to have, or whichever, to have like a 20-character random one. You can also set it to give you one that's pronounceable. So I have one that should really be complex, but I have to type it in a lot. So it's one that I can sort of remember. It doesn't make sense, but I can sort of remember. So it's just helpful. It generally gives you better password behavior. And also, yes?
So with one thing that holds all your passwords, doesn't that just mean someone just breaks into that?
Yeah. So
and now they have access to all your passwords.
In theory, yes, they do. So yes, it's an extremely valid concern. The way most of these password managers work, and actually LastPass for sure had a breach, but no one's passwords were lost, right? So the way they typically work is you have your master password is basically an encryption key, right? So you have a database of passwords, and you encrypt that with your master password that they don't have. And then they keep this encrypted copy of all your passwords online. So somebody could, in theory, get that list of encrypted list of passwords, but they'd have a really hard time getting into it, because your master password is not going to be monkey or I love you or 12345, right? So it's actually going to say this is not a great master password. And also, you're going to use multi-factor, right? So you're going to sign up for these things, and you're going to make sure that if someone tries to access your database from another machine, that it's going to give you the multi-factor. Just like with everything in security, nothing's perfect, but a lot of things are better, right? So this is a better option than recycling your passwords between sites or systems, or having really simple ones. Right. So email. Who's had a phishing email recently? Yeah? Did you fall for it? Good. I nearly fell for one recently. It was so good. So the thing about phishing, right, so there's spam. Spam is, everyone gets spam. Spam is not illegal unless they don't provide an unsubscribe option if it's a marketing email. One of you does marketing here, I think marketing. Yeah, so make sure you have your unsubscribe option at the bottom of the email, because that's required for a... What? I know, I've had a few. And then you have to go in and add them as junk in Google, and that never works. Anyway, so spam is irritating. It's a selling tool. They use it because a lot of people respond to it. They're trying to get you to buy something, or they're trying to, we all know what spam is. Spam has been around for a really long time. Phishing emails are a little bit more interesting, because what they've done is they've got your email address from somewhere, right? They've probably stolen it from a database, because there's a lot of them out there. And what they're trying to do is they're taking a chance that you have, for example, an Amazon account. And they're going to go, hey, Dave, this is your Amazon email, or sometimes just, hey, client, right? I've got a picture of an email. Your Amazon account has been compromised, and we need you to click here and enter your password and username and password, and then do this, right? So the indicative things about phishing is you have to do something right now, or something bad will happen. Like, you will lose your Prime membership and not get a refund. You're like, oh no, I have to get my free stuff, my free shipping, right? Or your package has been delivered, but we couldn't deliver your package because you weren't there, right? So we need you to click on something, and we need you to give us some information that typically you wouldn't want to give a random stranger because it's telling you to, and it's acting on your natural impulses to fix something, right? To fix something, or because you think something's just gone bad. And they're going to be looking for probably credentials. Sometimes they're going to ask you for a credit card number. So there's one nasty thing, which actually is really more of a virus, where you go out to a website and this thing pops up saying, this is Microsoft, and you have a virus on your workstation, and you need to call this number, right? So they've actually got a bank of people sitting somewhere answering the phone going, yeah, no, you have a virus. So give us your credit card number and we'll fix that for you, right? You should be extremely suspicious of anyone asking for your credentials or your credit card number or your social security number or anything that you consider sensitive if you didn't call them first. And if you get an email from Amazon saying your account's about to blow up and your shipping is gone and your package has disappeared, don't click on the link, go to Amazon and see if you see any of that stuff in there, or your bank, or whatever it is, right? So they're just playing on your reaction to, you're wanting to do something fast. And spam is different. And so here's an example, right? So up there, it says Amazon in the front. And depending on which email client you're using, you actually can't see most of the information that gives a lot of the rest of the details away, right? So AmazonCanada.ca, it probably cost them $9 to register AmazonCanada.ca. It's not a real domain. It's not a real website, right? But it looks like it. So you could be forgiven if you lived in Canada for thinking that this was Amazon, and it's missing an A, but it's hard to tell because of the @ sign, right? So these are all the tricks that they're using now, is they're just making you, because they're in a hurry. You've got 400 emails to read. Also, dear client, Amazon absolutely knows who you are. They know exactly what you bought and what you watch and everything that you like. So they're going to call you Dave because they know you're Dave. And they're saying, look, we have a problem. We're worried something's happened and we need you to do this. And in the link, it looks like Amazon.com, because when you're inserting a hyperlink, you can type any text you like, right? You get anything you like. But when you hover over it, it gives you something weird. Now, in all fairness, so things like Bitly, right? So Tahoe Silicon Mountain has a Bitly link. There are some weird things happening with those shortened links that they have in Twitter and with Bitly, and people are abusing them. So again, you don't necessarily know if it's a good link or a bad link. Go directly to the source. Go to your Amazon link that you've already saved, click on it, see if anything happens, reach out to a customer service person there. But just so watch out for that. And if you see anything that says .ru, which is Russia, it's definitely not right. I've seen them. Can you afford a better site? So then, same thing with the internet, right? So again, maybe you've clicked on this link, or maybe you've, in some cases, mistyped Amazon and put Amazon.com, and there's a lot of people that buy these sites just so that they can catch the people that have done that. So PayPal.com is a valid link, but that's not the URL. It's actually PayPal.com something, all the way down here is the actual URL, right? So find the last dot with nothing behind it, except the slash, and that's the website you're going to, right? This is not PayPal. Looks like it, but it's not. Again, go straight to PayPal from a link that you know. Type it in, PayPal.com. With these, up at the top left, the secure sign. Most of the browsers, I'm wanting to say Safari and Google, if you go to a website that doesn't have HTTPS, then they're actually going to say insecure now. So for those of you that have a business, that have a website, make sure you get this HTTPS certificate. It can be anywhere from $30 to $100. It's not much. We'll get it applied to your website so that you don't get the red insecure button, because that puts people off. However, if you're going to a site and you see this, it doesn't mean that this is a good person on this site. It just means their site is encrypted, so that any data you transfer is encrypted. So therefore, someone can't capture the data between you and them. It still doesn't mean it's a good site. It could still be someone in Russia. You don't know. And I'm not trying to be mean to Russia, but they do have a lot of people out there doing bad things. No, I mean, come on. So I worked at my company recently, and I got there, and they said, hey, listen, we got all the developers working on our e-commerce site. They're all from the Ukraine. which is not great because Ukraine and Russia and Brazil are some of the biggest locations for people that steal data. Anyway, so internet. So watch out. Don't think secure means that it's the right site. It just means the data is encrypted. There is a little bit more in there, but it's kind of hard to find sometimes. So privacy. The reason we're talking about privacy is because it's different. Okay, so has everybody in the last 3 weeks been getting emails from every site you've signed up for saying we have updated our privacy policies? I'm really sick of it. Does anyone know why? GDPR. So GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe. And it's a privacy policy, mainly, but it's also got a lot of security pieces in it. So when you get all these emails from whomever saying we've updated our privacy policy, it's because they're multinationals. So your local dry cleaner is not going to be dealing with people in Europe, so it's not going to be updating its privacy policy if it has a website, typically. So these sites that you're seeing these from are going to be multinational. So privacy is different, right? So Facebook, the Facebook issue that we had recently is not a data breach. So it may feel like a data breach because you've suddenly realized that your data has gone somewhere, but it actually was done using valid credentials, that's a valid business process, somebody was ultimately paying for it, right? This was all allowed by Facebook. It's just what they were really doing with it on the other side was not something that you had explicitly agreed to. Your friends may have explicitly agreed to it when they did the thing that says, tell me what kind of animal I am, right? And they ended up being a guinea pig. And in the meantime, in the giant privacy policy, they clicked a box that said, I agree for you to capture all of my data and all of my friends' data and effectively do with it what you will, right? So, has anyone heard of the Strava thing? So Strava, right? So you go running, as much as I know it, you go running, right? And in this case, you're a bunch of deployed people in the forces running around your supposedly secret bases. All of this data was going up to Strava because it says when you sign online, you're going to send all your data up there, right? So somebody, and it's open. They have open access to the data because it's not considered to be secret. So someone went on there and found out all of the locations of all the secret bases, and for the ones that aren't secret, exactly the direction which all these people run, because it's all up there. Because people actually want their data up there, so they can say, hey, I'm in the leaderboard, or whatever it is, right? So I do all these great things. So there's a bunch of apps that link to Strava, then I can maybe win a free pair of running shoes or something. So these people have leveraged this data. That was not a data breach. That is a privacy issue, right? It is data that is out there that is being used in a way that you didn't particularly want it to be used, but you probably agreed to it being used. So different security, confidentiality, integrity, availability. So we kind of go, okay, I've given my stuff away by mistake, or someone's stolen my stuff, or it's been deleted, removed, or it's not what it should be. And privacy is somebody has taken something I've given to them on purpose and done something I'm not too keen about. But privacy in general is you are supposed to be good custodians of the data. So this is what I love. So there's this, who has more than one Gmail account? Right, so do you have more than one Gmail contacts group? Right, so you have contacts in this Gmail, contacts in this Gmail, right. So I have 5, I think. So I was really irritated because I couldn't get my contacts to sync, and I'm in one Gmail and it doesn't know that I've emailed someone from this Gmail. So there's an application out there, which I'm not going to tell you what it is because I think it's rubbish, partly because of this. So in the privacy statement, right, when you're giving people access to your contacts, right, that is personally identifiable information to a certain extent, right? So if you're giving it to someone, you don't necessarily expect them to share it with the whole wide world ever. Just like when you say, hey, can I connect you to someone? Is it okay for me to give them your phone number? Typically in real life, we're going to have that exchange. So on this privacy policy, they go, oh, you know, we want you to trust us, and we're never going to betray your stuff, and it's yours. We're going to look at it, but it's yours. It belongs to you, right? Which, okay, it's private, kinda. It's protected, arguably, but you know, everything is relative, and it's portable, which just means that your data that they've just said are yours and private can go somewhere else, which is not a great, you know, it's a bit of a so what. But in the privacy policy, which of course is 12 pages of tiny text. But what it is, your email is copied to our servers and automatically scanned for contact information, but then we'll delete it promptly, we promise. Right? So if you're going to sign up for things that have access to your things like Facebook, Google, things that can be used also for logging into other sites, just be aware of what data they may be capturing. So we're also going to get all of your contact stuff, every communication you've ever had with them, and we're going to put it in our database. So at that point, it really becomes ours. You may say it's yours, but it never really is. So there was the website, God, I can't remember the name, Ashley Madison, right? So Ashley Madison, which is basically a cheater's website, right? So married people who wanted to meet other married people. And there was a thing that they did, which they probably had a similar privacy policy, right? So your data is yours, it's portable, we promise it's private. But then they also sold people a feature for $19.99 saying, we will delete you from the database. Let's say you've just, you've seen the error of your ways, we're going to delete you from the database, but they didn't. So when that data got breached, everybody's data was in the database, right? So that's a security issue, but started with a privacy issue, ended up being a security issue. It can be very hard to separate privacy or security. They are not the same things. Privacy is typically done by lawyers. Security is typically done by security people. So just in case anyone's wondering the difference. So just be very careful. I don't read privacy policies, and I do this, right? I just accept my data is lost. And try not to put things out there that I don't want to be out there to a greater extent. If you actually all read privacy policies, none of you would ever get online probably ever again. So just have to be aware. And remember that if it's for free, you are the product. So when Mark Zuckerberg was going up in front of the Senate, right? And he was trying to explain to these people who are not particularly of the online generation how they make their money. He said, we sell ads. Right? We all know this, but the way they sell ads is by knowing what you like, right? So to do that, they're getting your data. So ads, privacy, it's all the same thing, so just expect it. It's always a bit spooky, when you go and you're shopping for a blender, and then you go to a completely different website and it shows you pictures of blenders you might like. Cookies, yes. What's that? Well, they're using cookies, right? So you go onto the Blender website has dropped some information in a cookie in your browser that says, hey, by the way, she's looking at a blender. You've gone somewhere else, that website is reading all these cookies, sending it to an ad server in, milliseconds, saying, hey, this is a person who's kind of on the hunt for a blender. It's really irritating when it's like a car and you've bought the car and you're still getting pictures of cars. Like, I can only have one car. Anyway, ads, privacy, data. So mobile security, right? So the home button, it's fantastic, except for those of you that have children, and all 6 of your children and their friends have access to log onto your phone and play games when you're irritated with them, right? And you just want them to go and watch some screen time. So that's great, except just remember that they have access to that. Typically, they're going to have access to do whatever you have access to do with your Touch ID. This is a good thing. Like, this is better than remembering passwords or having a 4-digit PIN or those kind of stuff. It's good, but you just need to remember who else can do this on your phone and what they can get to. And what else is on your phone? This is text with dog. If any of you have not seen the text with dog texting messages, it's basically a dog in its own texting messages. So it's fluffy, they're going out. So if your dog has access to your phone, it's probably a different problem. Anyway, so yes.
Oh.
Yes. Oh, it's for the, yeah.
And regarding the phones, my husband makes me use a VPN.
Yes.
And I hate it because I have so much trouble that when I need to look for something.
Okay.
Is it really worth it?
So VPNs, virtual private network, right? So again, it depends. Are you doing anything at the time that you want to protect? So most applications, not banking, but most applications, when you log on, they're actually only looking for your credentials once in a while. So they save it for 60 days or something, so they're not always asking you for that. So the point of a virtual private network, which if you travel a lot, and you're using your laptops in hotels and airports and Starbucks and all of those kind of things, when you join onto those networks, you really don't know who else is on there and what they're doing. You have to kind of sort of trust them. So you don't have to use it at home. Does he make you use it at home? Okay, you don't have to use it at home if you trust yourself.
Well, yes, VPN is basically you have a server in some place of the world that encrypt your communications, and people get to your server, you don't know where you are, etc., depending which server you are.
Well, if they're on your server, a VPN is not going to help you, right? So
yeah. But the thing is, the VPNs not only protect when you travel a lot, you go to the hotel, we go a lot to South America, Europe, and that's it. But also most of VPN companies that sell VPN, they are in the Virgin Islands, Britain, some in Switzerland, some in Panama. That if, for example, some populist government decided in the United States that you have to give your data, these companies, these servers, and these companies' headquarters are not under US law. So protect your privacy also in the case of the government gets your data.
well, yeah, but they're not protecting you from the other countries, right? So there's just, it's a balance there. It's a balance. So at home, you don't need to use it because it is, you are going from your Wi-Fi network, which hopefully you have set up with a good password, so a secure password. I'll get your question in a second. And then it is going straight to your provider. And yes, they could, in theory, listen to your data, but really anybody could. So I do support the VPN, especially when you're traveling. So one of the things that we had done is a red team exercise. So that's when you pay a bunch of people to come in and see what they can get to on your website, which can be not on your website, in your organization, which can be pretty terrifying. So they went down and they effectively set up a Wi-Fi that was effectively called Pizza on the Hill, right? And they knew what the password was because it's on the wall, let's say, right? So people were joining on to Pizza on the Hill thinking it was Pizza on the Hill and then logging into all of their accounts, right? So that's when a VPN becomes important. If you don't really know who is providing you this website, you should use a VPN. For providing you your Wi-Fi access, you should use a VPN. But you don't have to, I don't think. I don't. When I'm at home or if I'm using my mobile phone as a hotspot. Anything else I do.
Instead of using like a hotel or Starbucks' web information, what about using a mobile hotspot?
Yeah, so hotspots are great, but in some cases that's not covered by your data plan or it costs a lot more, right? So there are options where that is not feasible. Also, if you're traveling in another country, at that point you want VPNs. I don't have it on this slide, but if anyone wants to email me or send me a message, there is actually a website where it has all of the available VPNs out there, usually like $5 a month or something, and it gives you all of the criteria, like how protected against the government is it, how ethical is it, what is the service like. So it gives you a whole bunch of red, yellow, greens, and so you can pick your provider based on whatever your goal may be for traveling.
They are extremely cheap. The only problem is sometimes slow down your connection.
Yeah, they're always going to, because it's another step, right? And also back in the day when you used to be able to watch Hulu from another country through your VPN, that doesn't work anymore. If you have a company VPN, you can do that because you're actually going directly back to America. But that was very disappointing to me when I realized I could no longer watch Hulu from England. So tablet security. Protect it as you do your mobile phone. For both of these things, you should have the thing where if you don't get your password right after X number of times, the machine should blow up. Because, don't forget, you all have really good backups. So you just restore it, right? So that is, it's called a brute force, whether someone's using a fingerprint or just trying to log in. If they do it too many times, it should just stop even offering them the chance to put in your username and password.
Hi, Tony from Incline Video again. Just wanted to mention, when browsing local or public Wi-Fi's, outside the home, are you familiar with like hotspot shields? They're kind of like a VPN where you can, it's an app you can download from the App Store. It's called Hotspot Shield, and that'll protect your mobile. It's kind of like a VPN.
So there's, like a VPN, right? So I'd like to know exactly how like a VPN it is. So I don't know about that. Really, again, For the most part, anything you do as an extra layer is good. However, where are those things being written? Because there are a lot of proxy sites out there that are actually, they are absolutely using you for the opposite reason you thought they were they are being available, right? They are capturing your data. So I'm not saying those are, I just don't know. I'm not familiar with them.
If you have an Android device, Google will do that for you for free. They'll lock your Wi-Fi if you're using a public network.
Yep, I actually have, there's also, I have a VPN on my Android that's an open something VPN. So there, Google is pretty good at providing you a bunch of tools for free, including the ability to wipe your machine, and Apple, same thing. I don't know if Apple has the same with VPNs, but just bear in mind, if you think you're signing on to Starbucks, you don't really know that you are, so don't go logging into your bank and providing all the information, unless you have multi-factor, because then even if they get your username and password, they still can't get in. But it's really all about creating better habits, like the person that does the weight loss, right? Better habits, right? So desktop security. So this is just a random screenshot, right? Do you get up? So who goes to work in a shared co-working space, right? So right. When you walk away from your laptop to get a cup of coffee, do you leave it like this? Because it's not a great idea, right? It's not private. Anything you have on there is not private if someone's sitting next to you. I always read whatever someone is doing on their laptop on the plane next door to me because I can't help myself, right? So, and you could do a privacy screen, but yeah, I can't do like this. Lock your machine. So if you have a Windows machine, it's Windows L. Mac makes it extraordinarily difficult. I don't understand why that you have to hit 3 buttons to lock your workstation. You can also do the red button on the top and sleep. And if you have your machine set up to request a password, when it comes back from sleep, then it will request a password. Again, on your laptop, if someone has your laptop and you don't have it secured, they have access to everything that's on there. So just, protect it appropriately. Because now that these things travel around with us more, they're just around, they can be stolen from cars, they can be whatever it is. So just make sure you have passwords. And better habits. And this was in the co-working space I was working at a while back, and someone had gone off, and there it was, sitting there. So, I mean, obviously there's places where you don't really think the person next door to you in the co-working space is going to jump on and do stuff. But it's again, and then when you're at Starbucks, they might steal your laptop, right? So just start the better habits in the safe place. And that was a definite oops. And I used this in my presentation to them, but sadly I didn't know whose machine it was. I cut out the bag, so it wasn't identified. And then, so protecting yourself. So in your personal life, so this is important, Kathy and I talked about this earlier, your debit card. If you're going to use a card, use a credit card, or use your debit card as credit. If you're putting your PIN number in, and that PIN machine is compromised, like for example, all the ones at Target were, then they capture your PIN, they capture your debit card number, and they go and take the money out of your bank account. And then all your checks start bouncing, and that's not great. If they use your credit card, first off, you don't have to pay them until the end of the month, but you don't have to pay them at all. But you don't even, the money doesn't whistle out of anywhere, it whistles out of their account, if anything. Don't use your PIN number unless you're really, really confident about where it's going. Use it as credit, much safer, covered by the credit card companies. Credit freezes. For those of you that were impacted by Equifax, the goal of it is that they didn't even say they give you a free credit card freeze. It might actually be free. Experian, they charge you $10 to freeze your credit. Annualcreditreport.com, not freecreditreport.com. Freecreditreport.com is not free, weirdly. Annualcreditreport.com is free. You can get a copy of your credit report, I believe, once a year for each bureau. So you can go in once every 4 months and could say, I want to pull it from TransUnion this quarter, Experian next quarter, Equifax next quarter. If you have young children with social security numbers, pull their credit, because you want to make sure and put freezes on their credit. You want to make sure that no one has compromised their social security numbers and opened up credit cards or mortgages in their name. You'd be surprised. Identity theft insurance. You can get identity theft insurance for like $5. It's sort of really very little, and it's usually about $25,000 worth of coverage seems to be the average, and you can typically get it with your homeowner's policy or really anything. If you have a business, there's cyber insurance coverage, which is a little bit more complicated, but actually still quite cheap. Check your credit. So when you go to annualcreditreport.com, you should do it periodically. Make sure there's nothing on there that's weird. And if there's something on there that you think is weird, or even maybe you just don't like it, dispute it. You can do it all online. They have to clean it up if it's true that it was a dispute. In some cases, you just can dispute it, and if they don't reply back in 30 days, it gets taken off your credit report anyway. Hopefully, one day, social security numbers will not be the most important thing about us. In some countries, the social security number is effectively public knowledge. It's just they've removed all of, I'm sure there's something else they use to validate you're you when you buy a house or open a credit card. But Equifax really ruined it for everybody with that. And they also lost a bunch of driver's license numbers. Let's talk about identity theft for a little bit. So identity theft, you can sign up for credit monitoring. Those of you that have been involved in a breach, you probably got an email saying we're signing you up for credit monitoring for free. It's a good thing to have. I also like checking my credit. Credit monitoring, I get it for free because I used to work at Equifax that bought a credit monitoring company. However, they didn't say anything about the recent breach. They didn't say, so I don't know how much I trust them. Go out and look at it yourself. And also for things like tax returns. I had a tax return filed illegally, so they got a fake refund from their fake tax return. And so then when I submitted my tax return, expecting a big fat refund, they said you're going to have to wait 6 months because you've already sent one. On the plus side, they did do it on time. So I wasn't, didn't need to file an extension. So those, that you can't find out. You can really only look on your credit to see who has requested credit, not who has set up a driver's license under your name or filed a tax return under your name. You kind of find that out in a slightly more complicated way. But you can't protect all of it, right? You just can't. So the best thing to do is your basic hygiene. Is good passwords, patching, making sure that when you click on things, they really are what you think they are, or go directly to the site, and backups. Because if you lose all your stuff, that can be sad and or ugly and or just really a productivity killer.
One thing about the credit freeze I wanted to mention, I did go through that. So I was breached by both Equifax and Experian, and my accountant recommended I do a credit freeze. And that's how I found out about mnemonics or mnemonics. And so they've given me this really long code to unlock the credit freeze when I want it unlocked, and then I can relock it once it's done. But yeah, it can be kind of a pain in the arse. Sorry, but that wasn't a bad word.
Not if you have a password manager. You just cut and paste. So you don't have to remember it at all. But yeah, with the credit freezes, you typically get asked to provide a PIN so that you can unfreeze.
Also, I think what Equifax did when their breach first came out, they set up a link or a page to help people check their identity on the dark web. And actually, if you clicked on that, you opted out from the class action lawsuit. And they were caught on that, and then they reversed it.
They weren't checking their identity on the dark web. Equifax wouldn't. Typically, people don't go there unless they have a reason to. They were just saying, does your name check against the list of known names that were part of the breach? It gave you wrong answers all the time. So one of the problems with Equifax, and if you have an organization, instant response is really important, because if you screw up instant response, everybody hates you. Who got an email from Under Armour the other day, or MyFitnessPal, saying your credentials have been gone, right? That was another one, right? So you got this email saying, hey, we've had a breach, your credentials are gone, and it was so nice of them to tell you that you've instantly forgiven them, right? Whereas Equifax screwed it up royally time after time and then sent the wrong link out to a different email, different website. So if you have an organization, get your instant response ready for your customers. And basically balance your risk. Don't put stuff out there so very quickly, because we're about running out of time. If you're a business, if you don't need it, don't ask for it. I just signed up for the gym. They asked for my driver's license number and my social security number. I said, why do you need these? Because here I am. And they said, we don't know, so don't fill that out. Don't ask for this stuff if you don't need it, because then you have to protect it. In some cases, it's a regulated piece of information. If you take credit cards, anyone take credit cards for their business? So hopefully you're all using something like Square or Braintree or something easy, where the onus is really on them. There's a little baby onus on you guys for PCI compliance, but not that much. Who has your information? If you're sending data to third parties, what are they doing with it? And how well are they protecting it, especially if it's stuff that is sensitive? Because you really don't know that. So that's third party risk management. It's a whole different problem. And then if you have any European customers, GDPR, work on your privacy policy and send it out to everybody you know. Business email compromise, going to whiz through this. W-2s season, someone says, hey, I'm the CEO, I need an entire copy of your W-2s and I need them right now, quick, quick, quick. And somebody inevitably sends them. So they also say, hey, I'm buying a company, I'm in China, I need you to wire funds to China right now, and somebody inevitably sends them. Make sure that if you're in an organization, that if they get a weird email from you or someone else, that they actually say this is weird rather than just sending money. $360 million, and I can't remember what date this was. They say globally it's a $3.2 billion industry, business email compromise. And only 15% of people notify because you are not obligated to notify. So people are embarrassed, they don't tell anyone, so the numbers are a lot bigger than this. So review, phishing, don't click. Just don't give people your information unless you started the conversation. Privacy, you're the product, so look at the privacy policy, see what they're going to do with it. If you don't like what they're going to do with it, don't accept it. And don't use the app, sadly, it's the only way to go sometimes.
Devices, last week came from, I don't remember which agency that mentioned that the Russians are hacking and are targeting our routers, our modems at home and the business.
Yeah.
How you protect your router at home, for example?
Well, most routers, and it's not necessarily that easy to get to if you're not a technical person, but most routers, by default, don't allow management incoming from the internet. You can set it up like that, but most of them block it by default, most of them. Also, most of them have an administrative password that is like stuck to the bottom of the device. A bunch of them got shipped with like, password, so they were compromised. So if you are setting up your own Wi-Fi, it is probably worth paying someone for an hour to come out and tweak it to make sure those things are not a risk. But yeah, they love doing that.
So DocuSign,
yes.
When you upload documents through DocuSign, supposedly it's a secure link and the documents are encrypted. But how do you feel like, is that really 100%, especially if you're uploading sensitive information?
So a secure link is very easy to tell because if it's got HTTPS, that means the data is secured in transit, right? You have to make sure it's DocuSign and not DocuSign.ru, right? But and as far as whether they protect it, that is their business model. So to a certain amount, I have the, if we're going down in flames, we're going down in good company, right? Because everybody is using it. There are some, so that's why you want to use reputable companies because their reputation is what they build their business on. So rather than using some other random signing company where you really don't know if they have these controls in place. Most of them will state their security white paper on there.
So a related question to that is that if you have to email something sensitive, which I generally don't, but in certain emergency, if I need to do that, do you have a favorite tool for encrypting the document that you want to email and also using some sort of secure link that is more secure than
So you can do two bits, right? You can do either way. Either way, it would go securely. So if you are sending, if you're using Microsoft Office, which let's face it, a lot of us still are, you can do save it with a password, so the password is needed to open it. That's actually pretty good encryption. The trick is, how are you sending them the password? So, I've seen things where they send the encrypted file and the password in the same email, right? So that is not a good way of doing it. But you can encrypt the file by doing save as, and then you make sure when you double click on it, it says what's the password, and then you call them or text them. So that is what we call out of band, so it's not the same thing that you're giving them the password on. That is a pretty good way to send sensitive information. If you have a secure file link, so you could, in theory, use Gmail and then share out a file. That's actually also pretty secure. If you're using if you're sending medical information, there's a lot of caveats on that, and you have to set up your Gmail separately and all of that's good. But it's not a bad way of doing it. Just sending it as an attachment in email. Email is not secure, not at all, never was, never will be. So you need to encrypt the attachment or send them a link that requires them to do something to get to it. Well, WhatsApp is very secure, actually, sadly, for all of the government, because they've now said that they're using encryption keys that they don't even have. So your communications are secure between you and whoever you're WhatsApping with. There is a big issue that the government has with encryption, because the government can no longer, whichever government, pick a government, not just ours, right, can no longer get access to any of these communications. They've had issues with that, obviously, for the people that we all globally don't like where the communications they have. And it's just the balance is people want privacy and people don't want terrorists to be communicating privately, but they're using the same tools. So WhatsApp's pretty secure. Then what? Well, I wouldn't do anything on Facebook. Nothing on Facebook is private. Which messenger? Facebook Messenger? Yeah. Facebook Messenger, I don't think is particularly, but WhatsApp is great, right? Again, depending what you're trying to do. None of my conversations are that secret, but I use WhatsApp because I have friends in, other countries, and it's easy for them.
Just a quick follow-up. Just a quick follow-up. Sorry, Facebook owns WhatsApp, so I would switch to Telegram.
No. So they do own WhatsApp. However, the encryption keys for the WhatsApp communications are not owned by Facebook and not accessible by Facebook. So
the only problem with WhatsApp, if you have a network or cloud backup, when it goes to backup your WhatsApp information, it's not encrypted. So
quite likely
you want
not,
to be really
right?
sure you don't have to have automatic backup.
You guys seem to have very interesting conversations, I think, on your WhatsApp. I'm going to just get your backups. So sure, when you do backups, and actually you want to make sure are your backups as secure as the data that they're trying to back up, right? So these are just all things that you have to look at. And devices, and very quickly, backups, patching, don't forget, and security, you've all got to do it, because otherwise you're not running faster than the person running faster than the bear. This is me. That's my Twitter, which I barely know how to use, and I just changed my password, and now I've got it on not the same, but I will look at it. So if you want the VPN list, email me, and I will send that to you, because I have to find it.
Will you stay for a few minutes?
Sure. Yes.
So I want to thank our speaker, Laura. An interesting combination of, wow, I didn't know that, or I know that and I know I'm supposed to be doing it, and a little bit of pat myself on the back.
Yeah.
I am doing it. And so thank you. Very good.
There were a lot of people doing the right thing, so that's good. And for the rest of you.
I will
Baby steps.
also